TCU falls in the desert to Arizona State 27-24. We break all of that down right now on Frogs Insider. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treebwasser as always. The Frogs have lost a football game for the first time in 2025, and we are going to talk about all of the things that went right, all of the things that went wrong, because there were quite a bit of both, frankly, in this football game. But Melissa, first, we are part of the Dave Campbell's College Podcasts Network. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Dave Campbell's, and that feed will pop up. You'll get our show, plus a show for every D1 football program in the state of Texas. If that feels like too much, though, you can always just find Frogs Insider wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll find a feed with just our shows. You'll get this show, the Big Sunday show. You'll also get Indie Drill, which is just a one-on-one show with me, and you'll get Melissa's incredible previews called From the Other Sideline with a guest every week previewing TCU's upcoming opponents. Don't forget as well to go like the YouTube channel. There you'll find all of that content, plus midweek pressers, post-game pressers, post-game live shows, like the one that Steven Johnson and I recorded in Tempe after Friday night's loss.
That I didn't get to be a part of. But
no, you didn't. Well, listen, I realized as we were going live that I, A, hadn't sent you the link, and B, wasn't sure how turning audio onto the laptop would how the mics would handle that, if there'd be a feedback loop. But yeah, this is a bummer for you. I guess maybe the weather saved you, because you were supposed to fly to Tempe and ended up stuck on a plane for a little while, and then the flight ultimately got canceled.
Yeah, it was. I'm not upset at you for not reading me in. I'm upset at Mother Nature for deciding to have a monsoon in the desert in September.
Yes.
That's fine and normal. But yeah, no, it was frustrating. I had a professional development day on Friday, and I care about being developed professionally. So that day was not to be a day taken off at schools. They frown upon that. So I couldn't fly out Thursday, which was unfortunate. So I rushed from my visit at St. Mark's, where some of you guys may know Jenny Dow Creech from her days at the Houston Chronicle and the Athletic. I sat in on her journalism class, which was really, really cool, and then booked it over to DFW, plenty of time, had a little snack, a little beverage, was feeling great, get in line. It's 10 minutes to boarding. I am one of those people that has to be in the general boarding area when boarding begins. I am the worst. I'm a control freak, and I just need to be there and be ready. Group 4, so not super egregious, but and everyone's kind of gathering, and all of a sudden a delay pops up, and thank God we had the old dude who was like super into flight aware, right? Like you always want the old guy he's ahead of what's going on. So he sounds like, oh, it's going to be pushed an hour, it gets pushed an hour. They call us back at 45 minutes. They're like, hey, we can go, we got to go. So we all get back in, they get us on the plane. We're all feeling good. Our departure time comes, and I get a 5-minute delay warning on my phone. I'm like, okay, no big deal. Probably just some traffic pushback. And then the Australian pilot, and thank God he had an Australian accent. I think that's why nobody got really angry. Comes up and he tells us what's going on. And this is like a 10-minute story I'm not going to go into on the podcast, but I will say there was a lot of things that were out of control of the airlines. There was a lot of backup, understandably so, in Phoenix. And so once they deplaned us at that point, I figured I wasn't going to make it. And so I got kind of ahead of things and started kind of getting things canceled. And then as soon as I got off the phone with American Airlines to cancel my flight got canceled anyways. So super bummer. Went home. The dogs were happy. I got to take them to the dog park before kickoff. And at the end of the game, maybe a little bit less disappointed than I had been at the beginning that I wasn't there, but I was still looking forward to experiencing that environment in person, and bummed it didn't happen.
Well, the environment was pretty cool. I will say the rain kept people from getting into the stadium right at kickoff, so it was pretty dead energy-wise, except for the student section down in that end zone. Um, but it was just such a strange weather day in Phoenix, because I got up in the morning. So I drove in to Tempe because I'm a crazy person, and got in Thursday night, got to the hotel, woke up in the morning, and it was cloudy out, and checked the weather. It was supposed to rain early in the day. It'd all be cleared out by game time. So I go drive around campus a little bit, go to the bookstore, pick something up for my kids, and just kind of do my thing. And then I get back to the hotel right at like 10:45, 10:50, and it immediately starts downpouring. There's hail. It's going crazy. This weather is insane. And it does not stop until I'm ready to leave to go to the game. And by the way, my hotel was 2/10 of a mile from the football stadium, so I was like, I don't need a parking pass.
Oh,
I'll just walk.
oh.
Turns out the media parking lot was further away from the stadium than my hotel, so
Okay, that worked out well for
that
you.
was a fine call, I guess. So I go up to my car in the parking garage, grab the umbrella out of my car, start walking to the football stadium, and it is a monsoon. The streets are flooding. It is pouring down rain. I walk up to the media tent where the metal detectors are, and there is not a security person there. This is probably about 3:30 in the afternoon now. Kickoff is at 6 Mountain Time, so I'm about 2.5 hours early. I like to get there early, get everything set up, and plus Jeremy wasn't at the game, so I was trying to get like all the game thread stuff set up and everything too. But there's a cop at this metal detector, and he's like, "Yeah, we are in a lightning delay. Nobody's allowed in the stadium yet." Okay, cool. So I stand at that metal detector for an hour.
Oh,
For an
miserable.
hour, and then someone else comes by and says, "Hey, they're letting media folks in this gate right over here," and they have been for a while.
Oh,
Cool.
even worse.
So I bump into Marshall Newhouse on the way into the stadium, who was such a great co-host with you
Yeah,
last week on the
it's
show.
awesome. You were
Friend of the
great.
show, Marshall Newhouse. We get in through security through the same gate where all of the like stadium service people and security people are going through, fully soaking wet at this point because I've been standing under a tent in the rain for an hour. Um, get up to the press box and we have ourselves a football game, but it was very quiet for the first 15 minutes of the game because a lot of folks were still filtering in trying to get into the stadium. And I think that was maybe part of why, as we kind of get into game talk here, TCU was able to jump out to a nice early lead because there wasn't this kind of hostile blackout stadium environment
Yeah.
right at kickoff. There were a ton of empty seats, and the Horned Frogs, despite a couple key injuries on offense, managed to jump out to a nice little 17-0 lead, and things obviously went downhill from there. But as far as the first part of the game goes, Melissa, I thought the offense executed pretty well. Had some fun trickeration stuff, and really, helped get, the 17-0, 17 unanswered points right out of the gate was a good thing to see in a road game where, in the past couple of years under Sonny Dykes, we had not seen this team maybe bring its own energy on the road and start really fast all the time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought that things were schemed up really well. McAllister was a late scratch. We saw him try to get out there for the second series, but Dozie had a couple. He had a couple of nice plays filling in. We saw them Josh target Jordan Dwyer early, and Jordan overcame a couple of early drops. We saw Manjack make some great plays as we're used to seeing, and DJ Rogers and Trent Battle. I thought looked really good in the run game early, and it seemed like Kendall Briles did a really good job of scheming for where the deficiencies were in those first few drives. I don't know that carried on after halftime
No.
whatsoever. I know that it didn't, but there were also some of the issues that ended up, ultimately costing TCU the game popping up, but it's the false starts. It's the getting behind the chains. It's the second and third and long. It's the trying to run the ball on first down conventionally and not being able to pick up much positive yardage. And TCU really played with fire against SMU. There were 9 false starts they said on the broadcast against SMU. I did not go back and count, but 9 false starts at home. So to see them false start a couple of times on the road was not surprising. But after being so successful kind of playing with fire last week, it caught up to them after those first couple of drives this week, and part of that's because Arizona State's a better team than SMU probably, but a big part of that was just Arizona State, which was a much more disciplined team than TCU was Friday night.
Yeah, I don't know if there were 9 fault. I know there were 8 penalties on TCU's offensive line against SMU. I think
Yeah, so
there might
maybe
have
that
been
was the.
nine false starts between the two teams or
That
something like
sounds
that.
more reasonable.
But yeah, I agree with you. I really liked what Bryles did with the scheme early. The four offensive linemen swinging out right and then doing a swing pass the other direction with Major, I thought was fun.
Yeah,
The
it's
double
great.
pass from Manjack to Dozy was
Yep.
fun. And it countered, like you said, a couple of the weaknesses that got exposed later in the football game when TCU tried to line up and just play big boy
Yeah.
football, and they weren't able to do it. I was also really pleased with how the defense started this football game. They forced two punts in Arizona State's first two drives. They forced long field goal attempts to two misses for Jesus Gomez in this football game as well. Things fell apart late, though, because it seemed like the issues on offense compounded into issues on defense. When you think about the fact that TCU was only 2 for 5 on third downs in the second half of this football game, when they only gained 3 yards of offense in the fourth quarter and turned it over twice on the wrong side of the football field. TCU's defense was playing with its back against the wall for the majority of the second half. Guys like Jordan Tyson are going to get loose, and he did. Those guys are going to get theirs for the most part. But I didn't think TCU did a great job late of covering some of the other guys besides Jordan Tyson. Ultimately, though, almost 500 yards of offense for Arizona State. Sam Levitt used his legs really effectively on a couple drives, and 220 yards on the ground rushing for Arizona State, I think, is a big thing about this defensive showing as well.
Yeah, I mean, they play. I've seen a lot of people be, kind of say this wasn't on the defense. It wasn't the defense's fault that TCU lost that game. And yes, I can agree to. I think the offense hurt itself more than the defense got hurt, probably. But I don't think you can be satisfied with that defensive performance if you're Andy Avalos or if you're Sonny Dykes. Like, you cannot be okay with giving up that amount of yards. And yes, they kind of play that bend, don't break style, and that's probably how they have to play. But at the end of the day, they were good in the red zone until they weren't. And when they were bad, they were very bad. And there were receivers running wide open. I think this is a much different game in the first half if Arizona State doesn't miss. One of the best field goal kickers in the country doesn't miss 2 kicks. And field conditions, I think, had a lot probably to do with that.
There was some wind.
There was some wind, too. Yeah. So, I mean, there were mitigating factors. Arizona State kind of spent the first half shooting itself in the foot. And then TCU, I mean, just took a sledgehammer to their feet in the second half, basically. Yeah. And so I think the defense got away with some things, and it's better to be lucky than good. But a lot of the things that we saw crop up in the second half against Abilene Christian, that we gave a lot of credit to Kevin Jennings, who did make really great throws, but just too often there's way too much space. And when you're playing potentially the best wide receiver in college football, and if he's not one, he's probably two, you cannot just hope. And it felt like there was a lot of hoping and praying going on out there. Yeah. There were some miscommunications. There were some players that didn't do what they were supposed to do, that weren't where they needed to be, that jumped some routes. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, like, Sam Levitt is such a gamer, and TCU's defense allowed him to beat them when it was like kind of, I don't want to say not cutting time, but when it was not cutting time, right? Like, that's that at the end of the day, Arizona State made plays TCU didn't on both sides of the ball.
So at the end of the day, TCU secondary, 4 different players were targeted at least 5 times by Sam Levitt. Defenders were targeted 5 times by Sam Levitt in coverage. Those 4 players were Bud Clark, Jamel Johnson, Channing Canada, and Austin Jordan. And all 4 of those players gave up at least 4 completions. Jamel Johnson gave up 5, right? And so there were just too many situations where you had guys in coverage and they couldn't get the job done. I will say this: there was an instance late in this game, and we can. I don't have a rundown for tonight, by the way. I didn't scribble one down, but Jordan Tyson's second touchdown, a lot of people were jumping on Vernon Glover for his coverage on that play. I've gone back and I've watched that play 4 or 5 times now. And if you watch 4/5 of TCU's secondary, you understand that they're in zone on this play. And there was one member of the secondary who tried to jump a route on a tight end and carried that man through the end zone so that when Vernon Glover, who had great coverage on Jordan Tyson for the first 3 seconds of that play, tried to pass Tyson off to a safety in the middle of the back of the end zone, that safety wasn't there, and that safety was Bud Clark. Bud Clark had a bad night, and his PFF grade doesn't necessarily reflect that. But there have been situations this year, and that fourth quarter was one of them, where it feels like he abandons the scheme to try and make a highlight reel play. And that works some of the time, but other times it really puts the other guys around you in a bind because Vernon Glover was anticipating Bud being there in the back of the end zone. He was anticipating help. And it makes sense for Andy Avalos to call something that puts a bracket on Jordan Tyson
Yeah.
in that situation. So you've got a guy over the top, you've got a guy out kind of in the middle of the field so that if he cuts back that way, you've got a secondary help on him. And now if Tyson's route took him to the back corner, to the back pylon, good luck, Vernon Glover. That's all you, brother.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the route. And I thought that if you look at the defensive formation and this where the guys were on the field, if Bud's staying where he's supposed to stay on the field, it's probably an interception in the end zone,
Yeah.
or at the very least, it's an incomplete pass. And Arizona State does not tie the game late. And so there are situations where I think guys are trying to play hero ball rather than just playing within the scheme. I don't know if that's because they don't trust the scheme, if they just feel pressure to try and do too much in any given moment, because we've seen the kinds of things Bud Clark can do. He should have had 2 interceptions, by the way, on Friday night and dropped both of them. So maybe he was just trying to make up for stuff earlier in the game. But the reality is that the secondary isn't good enough right now for guys to be abandoning the game plan or abandoning the scheme in any given moment. And I think that was part of the challenge on Friday night, especially late, was that guys just weren't good in coverage.
Well, and especially your fifth year senior.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Your
especially,
captain.
yeah, your captain. And yeah, you dropped that little nugget in the chat earlier today. And I went back and watched it and completely agree. And we've seen it, like Bud he baited Sam
Gio
Levitt
Lopez.
into a throw.
Oh, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, but he did it with Gio Lopez and he got the pick six. He baited Sam and he almost, he had that ball in his hands and probably takes it all the way back. We saw him try to do the same thing against Kevin Jennings, and Jennings snuck one, just barely by him on, I think it was a third down. But you cannot, and I think that's been the story of this defense. Going back the last 17 games, you play with fire. And when they've played a good quarterback, they've gotten burned.
Yeah.
In the last 2 seasons, a season and a third, how many good quarterbacks has TCU faced off against? Right? I would say Sam Levitt is a really good college quarterback. I would say Kevin Jennings is a really good college quarterback, was probably better a season ago because he had better weapons around him, but was obviously really, really good a week ago. And other than that, probably Sawyer Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
They've avoided most of the top end talent in this league. And so, especially that last 7 game stretch to end last season, the only good quarterback they played down that stretch was Sawyer Robertson. He won in a walk-off in a really good game. And I don't think there was much after that kind of put fear into your heart as a defensive coordinator, as a secondary player. And so they allowed a good quarterback to be great on Friday night because of again, goes back to the discipline and, the not doing your job. So his thing is do your job. And there were guys out there that just weren't doing their job. And it's really hard when it's your veteran players in that position.
Yeah. Speaking of doing your job, TCU's offensive line really struggled on Friday night, especially at the tackle position. I think the kind of not highlight, but like the key defining moment of the offensive line's night was Josh's fumble in the fourth quarter. Ben Taylor Whitfield got blown up on that play, got pushed back 5 yards right into Josh. Hoover looked like he was holding the ball out to his side, maybe a little too far as he was looking downfield. But at the same time, when you only have half a second to react, it was a great play from the defensive end, right? Yeah. Prince Dorgba, is that who it was? just absolutely blew up Ben Taylor Whitfield, took Josh to the ground and took the ball from him in the process, and that set up the game-winning field goal for Arizona State. But TCU rotated at left tackle with Ryan Hughes and Quentin Harris. Neither of them had a very good night. The interior of the offensive line held up all right in pass protection, but nobody was good blocking the run again. This is a theme over the last couple of years now, is TCU's inability to block up for the running game. And I'll also put this out there. Jeremy Payne and Trent Battle were awful in pass protection.
Yeah.
Awful. Jeremy Payne had a 24 PFF grade in pass protection. Trent Battle had a 14.9. And so I think, we've had conversations in the group chat about Kavorian Barnes, and yes, he had the 75-yard touchdown run, and that was really great against North Carolina. But I think where TCU really misses Kavorian Barnes the last 2 weeks is in pass protection, because he's a good pass blocker. He showed that against North Carolina as well. And he's a bigger bodied running back who's capable of holding up a linebacker for more than half a second. So really just poor blocking all the way around from TCU offensively. It's part of the reason they only scored 7 points in the second half on Friday night. It's part of the reason Josh got sacked 6 times on Friday night. Some of those turnovers were because he held on to the football too long or didn't make the right read when he was throwing the football. But when your quarterback is under duress as much as Huber was on Friday night, the production's going to drop. The production's just going to drop. And I think that until TCU figures out how to block up against good defensive fronts, the ceiling is going to be relatively low for this football team.
Yeah, I think a couple of things I want to react to in that. Number one, I think that there's a lot of people that think Kavorian Barnes would have made a massive difference in the run game, and I think that's an unfair statement to make. We do not know what his impact can be in the run game at this point. We saw him look incredible against a North Carolina team that is putrid. And everybody looked really good in that game. And so I don't know that that is much of a statement of to what he can bring to TCU as a running back as it is just, how bad North Carolina is. He might be fine. He might be good. We don't know. I don't know that anybody would have been effective with what was available to them Friday night. The run blocking, there were no lanes, there was nowhere to go. Two, yes, I do think that we need to some degree absolve Josh of blame completely here. But at the same time, he is in, we're working on 2 full years of being a starting quarterback. His 3rd year taking snaps as a starter. He's still holding the ball too long. He has to know in that situation, under duress especially, he's got to have more of a sense in the pocket. And that's the play that you talked about, yes, he had no time. I went back and watched that a couple of times today. The Arizona State football account made a pretty ridiculously good edit of it, and it was very annoying, and I hated it. It was very dramatic, had the dramatic music and everything. But I went back and watched, and he didn't feel it until it was too late. It was 2 seconds, so sure, I'm going to give him a pass on that. But there's a lot of times where he has the opportunity to climb in the pocket, and he doesn't do it. And because he doesn't have the lateral speed to kind of get out onto the edge as much, we've seen him use his feet effectively, but he's got to get better at climbing the pocket under pressure. And then really, to me, where the malpractice is, everybody knew it wasn't working. Everybody knew that the running backs could not run block to save or pass protect to save their life. It is absolute malpractice to not put help back there, to not put a tight end back there to chip, to not call, why? Where was the quick game? Where were the fast developing plays? I mean, you've got Josh doing 5 and 7 step drops on a day where he doesn't have time to scan the field past his first read half the night. That to me was the most egregious part of what happened in that game. Arizona State adjusted and they won. TCU did not, and they lost. And that to me was the thing, is how do you not scheme up a way to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands when you were having success with the fast game, with some of the unusual formations, with the things in the first quarter and the first half that gave you a 17-0 lead, and just to completely go away from it and start to play desperate, even when you were still in the lead or running, score for score with them late. I did not understand what the thought process was on the sidelines.
No, I agree. I think, in talking with Sonny after the football game, I think it was Steven. Steven and I were the only 2 people that asked questions, let's be completely honest. Yeah. But Steven asked about the inability to run the football, and Sonny said it really killed him. And I agree. But he also mentioned that they knew they couldn't run, so they just kind of abandoned it.
Yeah.
And I understand abandoning the run when it's not working for you. But like you said, they didn't in 2024, TCU's inability to run the football, especially in those first 6 games, forced Kendall to get really creative with quick screens, slants, some of those passes behind the line of scrimmage that act as a running game when you don't have a really good running game. It might have been okay in the second half on Friday night to go back to some of those,
Yeah.
things and run Jeremy Payne out into the flat and try and get him the ball out there to do some more of that quick slant stuff. I know you didn't have Eric McAllister because of the hamstring injury, but Ed Small
Yeah.
and
Where was Ed
Manjack,
Small?
right? Small and Manjack and Dwyer have all proven to be really good. Just a few feet, just a few yards beyond the line of scrimmage, they can create for themselves once they have the ball in their hand. Dwyer did not have a good night. I think he was credited with 4 drops on the night, which tough night for him. One of those interceptions he was directly responsible for because it bounced off his hands and his chest. But at the end of the day, when you know that this defensive line for Arizona State, A, has 2 really capable pass rushers, and B, knows you're not running the ball, so they're going to pin their ears back, you got to do something to keep them at bay just a little bit. And we didn't see any of those kinds of adjustments from TCU on Friday night.
Yeah, and like Josh ran the ball really effectively a week ago, and that was not in the game plan whatsoever. And again, I mean, we've all played Madden and NCAA. Like when you have a aggressive pass rush, you run some screens. And Joseph Manjack has got to be. He's one of the best tackle breakers out of that wide receiver core, and he turns 3 yards into 7 almost every other time he touches the ball. Like get him more involved, and he's great in the quick game. DJ Rogers, like, has been pretty good this season. Like they barely look to target
that little
him.
slant from the slot.
Yeah,
He's good for 5 to 7 yards on that almost every play.
Yeah, and just to completely not try to find it, you have to get creative. You have to account for your deficiencies. This coaching staff decided to not really address the offensive line and to not really address the run game in the portal. You knew what you were going in with. You have to be prepared to account when it goes the way that it went on Friday night, and to put your quarterback, who you trust and is very good and very experienced, in a position to be successful. And it was not a good night for Josh. Josh did not have a great game against SMU, other than, I think Eric McAllister, obviously, like, his broken tackles helped his overall numbers. But in that game, Josh found a way to get his team down the field with some help from McAllister.
Sure,
he didn't have McAllister Friday night, but like, you have to give him a chance to be that guy.
Yeah, and to your point, what route did McAllister run on 2 of his 3 touchdowns? A slant.
Yeah.
He was maybe 5 yards off the line of scrimmage when he caught the football, and he made a play. But we didn't really see TCU giving any of their other wide receivers the opportunity to do that. It almost felt like, oh, well, Eric's not here. We got to just try and get some guys up in the other. And to be fair, there were some wide receivers running free at times.
Sure.
Josh just either missed them because he had happy feet, or he was actively being sacked or flushed out of the pocket. And just when you realize that your tackles are getting whipped, you've got to figure out a plan B, and it just never felt like they fully shifted to plan B.
It didn't even look like they were looking for plan B half the night.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the frustrating thing, is that, Josh was a little inaccurate against SMU, but at the end of the day, he and his great wide receiver, they made plays, right? He had some of the same inaccuracy issues, but when he was accurate, he wasn't getting help from the receivers. I mean, that ball to Dwyer that ended up turning into interception was a perfectly placed ball.
And it would have been a first down.
Would have been a first down. And it wasn't a triple coverage, but it was a ball that got where it needed to be. Right. So I'm not going to be mad at Josh for that. But at the end of the day, like, he's played 2 good defensive fronts. SMU's defensive front was the best they'd played to this point. Arizona State's was definitely better. And he has had trouble being as sharp as we expect him to be, because the offensive line and the tackles especially cannot give him the time to be that guy. Josh with time is as good a quarterback as there is in the country. Josh off schedule reverts back to the mean a little bit. And I would imagine most players do, unless they have super dynamic athleticism like Sam Levitt, who was able to overcome it.
He was. So that's the second straight 27-24 win for Arizona State. They also beat Baylor in Waco by the same score. And, I think we've talked a lot about the deficiencies of TCU's offense the last couple of weeks and the ways that they are struggling. But the reality is Arizona State forced a lot of those
Sure.
struggles as well with a really capable defensive front. They were missing several key players on the defensive side of the ball, including what I would consider their best
Yeah.
member of their secondary, their best defensive back, and Xavier Alford. But it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
It just didn't really matter. Defensively, we've already talked about some of the challenges of the secondary, but I want to I want to call out Kaleb Elarms-Orr
Yeah.
specifically because I thought he had a fantastic night.
Yeah. He
He had
looked great.
13 tackles, 2 sacks, a pass defended on a fourth down that was really in a big pivotal moment in the fourth quarter for TCU. He is, in my opinion, right now TCU's best linebacker. He might be TCU's best overall defender
Yeah.
at this point in time, and it's been really cool to see him step into a bigger role this year after transferring over from Cal last season. I know that in that offseason, he picked TCU over Ohio State, and then he didn't see the field a ton against in year one for the Horned Frogs. I know that was a little disappointing for him, but he is absolutely showing out so far this season. He's got 31 tackles through the first 4 games, and it's just having himself a hell of a season so far. So excited to see his development and
Yeah.
growth. And he's been if TCU's defense needs someone to rally around, Kaleb Elarms-Orr would be a pretty good guy to do that.
Yeah, he's been great, and I think I was going to touch on that in his leadership. I mean, he was the guy that got to Max Carroll after the penalty against SMU. I would not want to be on his bad side, but I'd also trust that he'd get me right.
Yep.
I think TC needs more guys with that kind of fire that back it up with their play, and I think that's a little bit missing on the defense. Just doesn't have enough nastiness to it right now. There's not
Yeah.
enough of an edge, and I think Kaleb is one of those guys that can kind of sharpen that edge for them again. It's going to be interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, like we talked about this a little bit, but you and I both kind of saw this as a loss. It was
Yep.
a 3-point spread. Like you reminded me of that earlier today too. But there's just not a lot of room for error this year in this conference, and you still have some difficult games ahead of you. And it just feels so much like last year in a way that's really disappointing because it feels like TCU is going to be a lot better and a lot more talented than a lot of the teams on their schedule, and they're going to find ways to win. But when they play teams that are slightly better than them, they can't kind of rise to the occasion. They had a perfect opportunity to go on the road and steal one and put themselves in the driver's seat to be one of the 2 teams in Arlington in December. That would have been a massive win. This does not eliminate them from Big 12 title game competition. We are one conference
Yeah,
game into
no,
the
that's
season. Like,
way-
let's not
yeah.
get crazy. But I think the thing that is concerning for fans is that you look at this and you say, okay, like everything's still in front of them, but the same things that kept them from having an opportunity to fulfill that destiny a season ago have not changed this year. And they're going to have to rise above it. You get Colorado at home with a night game in a blackout environment, like that better be a win. That's a must-win game to me. But then you're going to have to go to Kansas State and win. You're going to have to beat Baylor at home. You're going to have to beat Iowa State at home. If you want to be a great team, you have to beat those teams that are maybe just a little bit better than you or equal footing with you, but not everything's going your way. And that's
Yeah.
TCU had a chance to get a win, and they could not rise up to the occasion when they needed to, and Arizona State did, and that's so frustrating to watch as a fan.
It is, like you said, we talked about this in the group chat yesterday and this morning a little bit, but TCU was a 3-point dog coming into this game. They lost by 3 points. So, like, if you just look at it in that way, you're like, okay, well, kind of what was expected. But the context of the game itself, where you jump out to the 17-0 lead, you have a chance to maybe go up 24-0 and really just step on their neck before halftime. You end up giving up a 75-yard touchdown
Yeah.
to Jordan Tyson, who just absolutely cooks your corner, gets behind everybody, scores, and then another touchdown the next drive down for Arizona State, and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game instead of it potentially being a 24-point game. Really tough swing there, and then you just never really recovered after
Yeah.
that. The stat that stuck out to me is that TCU gained 3 yards in the fourth quarter and had 2 turnovers, and it's just at the end of the day, regardless of scenario, regardless of where you are, how loud the stadium is, who's on the other side of the football from you, that's not good enough.
3 yards is
That's just not good enough.
embarrassing.
And part of the reason, I will say this for the defense. I mentioned it a little bit off the top. Yes, they almost gave up 500 yards of offense. Yes, they gave up 27 points. But, I mean, Arizona State started with the ball in TCU territory, I think, on 5 drives,
Yeah.
4 or 5 drives. And you're just, what are you supposed to do? And they
Yeah.
were still fantastic in the red zone.
Yeah. They were very
And
good.
Arizona State's has not been a great red zone offense so far this year. I think they were outside of the hunt, like they were like 108th in red zone efficiency coming into Friday night. TCU's defense held them to that for
Yeah.
the most part until the very end when a guy tried to do too much and left his post
Yeah.
and Jordan Tyson tied the game. But you talk about how wide open the Big 12 is, Melissa. Here are the other scores from around the league this weekend. BYU goes to Colorado and wins 24-21.
Big comeback there too. They were down
Yes.
21-0, I think, at one point.
Something like that. They were
Yeah.
losing by several scores. Iowa State hosts Arizona and just belt the ass 39-14. Utah travels to West Virginia, belt the ass 48-14. Utah gets off the mat after getting whipped up by Texas Tech.
West Virginia is so bad.
West Virginia is not good. I'm still curious as to how they beat Pitt because Pitt beat Louisville on Saturday, so I'm not sure.
No, didn't I thought Louisville came back and won that game.
Did they? Last I
they
saw,
did.
Pitt was winning. Our good friend interim head coach Doug Meacham had the fight in Oklahoma State Pokes in a game with Baylor until very late. They end up losing that one to Baylor in Stillwater 45-27. We saw a cool clip from Meacham after the game talking to the student reporter of the Ocali, saying that he never could figure out the crosswords in the Ocali. He tried to do them every day when he was an undergrad. I think that's the kind of energy Oklahoma State needs right now. By the way,
sure.
It's just kind of that laid back, friendlier attitude from Meacham. Of note as well, Oklahoma State fired their defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham, after this football game. So Meach is really just kind of like the only man standing there right now for
having the time of his life.
But also of note, former TCU quarterback and current Oklahoma State wide receiver Samuel Jackson threw 4 passes in this game,
including a touchdown.
I think we might see Sam Jackson go back to quarterback at some point because Zane Flores just ain't it. Cincinnati beats Kansas at Kansas.
Yeah, that was
37-34. Kansas State gets off the schneid and kind of thumps UCF. It was never really a game, 34-20. And then Houston has to come back and beat Oregon State in overtime on the road. But they are now 4-0. The 4-0 Houston Cougars in a non-conference game there. And Texas Tech had a bye week. They are at 4-0 as well. So it is wide open. You look at some of these results, you think, Cincinnati beating Kansas on the road, that's weird. BYU, who's 4-0, struggling on the road with Colorado, right? And this is a wide open conference. Everything TCU wants, the point I'm making in reading all those scores is everything TCU wants to accomplish is still out in front of them. But you've got to play better than you did on Friday night, or everything you want to accomplish will be behind you pretty quickly. And so I think we just need to see growth from this team. I think we need to see some leadership, especially along that offensive line and in that secondary. But I still think this is a pretty talented football team that's capable of winning a lot of football games this year.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing, right? This is a really talented football team.
Yeah.
And yeah, they absolutely can make a run. We're going to know so much about this team in the next 6 weeks. This stretch of football is going to be critical. But you don't, you never really control your own destiny in the Big 12 because of the imbalanced schedule. But you can make a statement and you can put yourself in a really good position if you can knock off Kansas State and Baylor in October. Those are the two. You've got to take care of business against Colorado and West Virginia. I don't, I'm not going to say I don't worry about them. I worry about every game, but I'm confident TCU is significantly better than both of those programs and should be able to get those wins. But the Kansas State Baylor stretch and then Iowa State, coming in right as November turns too, those are the ones that are going to be the difference for this team. And if you want to play for a Big 12 championship, with the way that this season has started, having wins against those teams is going to be massive. So the offensive line has to be better. The running game has to get something going. Who knows how long Barnes is going to be out? Who knows how long McAllister is going to be out? Those are injuries that can linger. So you got to find other ways to get things done. I'm still shocked we have not seen Jacoby Hayes. There's not anyone that can really take the top off of the defense. And I think especially with McAllister out, I would have loved to have seen that speed on the outside, even just as a decoy. I think Ed Small has played so well to see him kind of become persona non grata Friday night surprised me. They're going to have to look for other ways to get guys involved if McAllister is going to miss any significant amount of time. And they're going to have to look for other ways to move the football if the running game is going to continue to be as bad as we fear it might be.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see DJ Rogers and Chase Curtis blocking a little harder in the run game as well.
Agreed.
Just even if it's just a little chip, but give those tackles
Yep.
some help. The all three TCU offensive tackles had pass blocking grades that were pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
Um, Not surprising,
Yeah.
but the reality is right now is that you've got Quentin Harris and Brian Hughes at left tackle in pretty much a split rotation at this point.
Which is
And
concerning 4 games in, but
we used to, the old adage used to be if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. I would say the same thing about left tackles right now, because I just don't know I just don't know what the path forward is at left tackle if you're throwing two different guys out there that often. I mean Hughes had 32 snaps, Harris had 24. Um, it's just not viable, really. It's just not
yeah.
viable right now at the tackle position. I will also say this. We mentioned Kaleb Elarms-Orr. He and Bud and Jamel all played 87 snaps of defense on Friday night because Arizona State had 87 snaps on offense. The turnovers and the field position and everything else, I mean, just was stacked against TCU's defense all night, and Caleb was still out there flying around the entire time.
Special teams has got to get better too. We haven't touched on it. I think Nate McCashland is doing the best he can in this moment. But obviously the punting game left a lot to be desired, other than the one that boomed for 70 yards, and then putting a true freshman on a pivotal moment and having him run that. I'm sure it was his decision. I'm sure that they talked on the sidelines about not running that ball back. But those are things that just can't happen a month into the season. And that, who knows if it would have changed the result, but you just cannot put your offense in a position in that play. So there's a lot. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to discipline, just discipline and playing smart. And we've seen a lot of instances where TCU is not doing well in those two areas.
Yeah. Let's talk a little soccer for 2
Yeah,
seconds
good.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they went on the road against a ranked Kansas team and won 3-2 on Sunday afternoon. Big win for Frogs and for Eric Bell's squad. Really good to see.
Seven Castaigne. I tweeted about this day. And mind you, too, they didn't just go beat Kansas. They have stayed on the road. They have been in Kansas now since Tuesday or Wednesday. They won at Kansas State and then won at Kansas. Seven Castaigne has the hat trick today. I think we need to start talking about her place among the all-time great TCU athletes. She is dynamic. She has really put this team on her back with Bella Diorio not playing. With all of the injuries they've dealt with. But Seven was awesome. I had TCU soccer on the second screen to Red Zone today. Morgan Brown has been really, really good for that team. Cam Patton played. I don't think she's taken a second off this entire season. She's been super dynamic. Everything that we want to see TCU do when it comes to playing smart and playing with discipline, TCU soccer is certainly doing. This league has been pretty crazy. There have been some pretty wild upsets already. TCU has been very steady. It hasn't always been pretty, but they have a giant target on their back and they keep rising to the occasion. They've scored, I want to say, it's a ridiculous number. It's like almost every game they've played in, except for maybe two, they have scored in the last 10 minutes to take a lead. So they are the cardiac frogs for sure. So big home game Thursday night against Colorado. Colorado just went on the road and won. Where did they win? They won somewhere that it was an eye-opening victory. So that's an important game. We get the Colorado doubleheader here Thursday and Saturday. So if you have not gotten out to Garvey Rosenthal, this is a great time to do it. The weather's supposed to be perfect. It's an awesome environment. I have been a very bad person at attending TCU soccer games, as Price reminded me on last week in the press box. So my hope is to be out there Thursday night. But they have been good. And TCU volleyball also lost a heartbreaker in 5 sets at Baylor on Wednesday night. My days all get to, or maybe it was Friday night. I don't know. They played Baylor at some point. It might have been Saturday. Who knows? Lost a heartbreaker in 5 sets. That team, they're really gutting it out. They beat Houston in 3 sets, but every one of them was close at home. And they went on the road and dropped one. They are playing without their best player, who Jalen, I cannot remember the last name, blew her knee out beginning early in the season, I think against Penn State. But that team they're figuring it out. They're adjusting. They've got some really elite talent. Sarah Sylvester, some of you guys might remember from her brief moment as a TCU basketball walk-on during that season where everybody got hurt. She's one of the best blocking centers in mids in the entire country right now. She's doing really incredible things. Becca Kelly is super fun to watch, very explosive. Jason Williams is got something rolling. I mean, this is a top 10 team. They probably fall to like 14, I would imagine, after the loss at Baylor, but they are really, really talented, really good, and really fun to watch. And you definitely got to get out Schollmeyer and support them as well.
They host Kansas at Schollmeyer on Wednesday night at 6:30. Like you mentioned, soccer hosts Colorado Thursday night at 7. TCU hosts Colorado at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, and then soccer with the matinee on Sunday, hosting Iowa State at 1 o'clock. So big week coming up for TCU athletics. Rifle is also underway now. They got a first place in their first tournament of the season up,
Of course they
I believe,
did.
in Annapolis at Navy. So shout out to the military schools. TCU owns you.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
whatnot. Anyways,
I
that
don't know
could
if we
have been
should
stronger.
talk smack to
That could be
the
stronger.
military academies, but
I won't. I'm going to stop right there. But also, haha, TCU hired one of your athletic directors.
also
Anyways,
that, yeah.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. We will be back later this week. I will have an indie drill posting on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. Melissa will be back with From the Other Sideline to preview the Colorado game. I think I know who her guest is going to be.
You want to put it out there? I've already confirmed it. So
Yeah, go for it. Tell us who's
Deion
going to be on.
Sanders. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, perfect.
It is our good friend Brian Howell, who's been on the TC or the Colorado beat well before Deion arrived in town. He's an awesome guest. He'll be in town for the game as well. We've gotten to know him really, really well over the last couple of years. So yeah, he's already committed to join me. So that'll be a great episode. He knows that program better than anybody at this point, and is one of the few guys that has managed to not piss off Deion Sanders yet. So he still gets to do his job, which is good.
You love to see it. Yes. So indie drill coming on Wednesday. Preview with a Colorado preview with Brian Howell coming on Thursday. And then we'll be back after the Colorado game, breaking everything down on the live post-game show with Jeremy Clark and Steven Johnson on the YouTube channel and on X following the post-game press conferences. So don't miss any of the content that we've got coming up this week. Also, fun fact, side note, baseball starts back up. Fall camp for baseball. I will be out there on Tuesday afternoon talking a little Frog Ball USA.
The other thing we need to mention too when we do that, basketball practice starts officially too. TCU men's basketball will be hosting a little event Friday night, so you could really have a full week of very inexpensive to free entertainment. Just right out the gate. So yeah, baseball
Wednesday
starting
through
back up. Basketball, men's and women's starting back up. I'm sure I'll be doing some stuff with women's basketball here in the next couple of days as well.
Absolutely. Keep it all at Frogs Insider and hornfrogblitz.com, and we will talk to you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.